Really Big Show with Czek and Iain Burns.
I'm Czek, with me Iain Burns out there in the nation's capital, and I'm about, I'd say 90% now. My voice is starting to come back. Definitely feels a lot better. So thank you for being patient with us this week as I tried out my Stevie Nicks voice here. I tried to go to karaoke last night, but I got booed off the stage right away. So just can't have it. Harsh. I didn't go. A decade of deception has Canadians on their knees. Fraud, waste, corruption, lies. I mean, most of the stuff is just lies, and that's the theme of the show today, and we're going to show you. And the lies continue. It's misinformation, disinformation. It's almost like this, the novel 1984 was written about Canada, and the Office of Misinformation, or the Ministry of Misinformation, resides right there at CBC, headquartered there, and they pump out misinformation and disinformation, and the government basically has control of the mainstream media here and extended that control here by extending more subsidies to even the television stations. It is like to CTV and Global and the rest of them like that. Instead of like trying to help the media, freeing us, they just put more shackles on. And it's a very sad situation here. And what could help us the most is what they continue to shackle. And that's going to be where we lead off today. But like we like to share feedback that we get all the time from people, even when it's negative. And of course, this piece we got here blew me away. And I took the name out because they wrote it on actually government email. They wrote it on a government email, like a branch of the government here. So I was going to send it back to and CC their boss and say, is this what the government now sends out, accusing us of or insinuating that we are part of Proud Boys or taking money from Proud Boys, like an organization that the Canadian government has designated as a terrorist organization. They just say this stuff. And by the way, we're not a newspaper. You're discrediting yourselves and the entire newspaper. Okay, we don't have a newspaper. But anyway.
Well, this is what happens. We have these low information voters, as people like Hillary Clinton patronizingly refer to their opponents. These people really are low information. They're low information. They're trapped in misinformation bubbles. They don't really know what's going on. But when they see something that challenges what they've been told by, we mentioned too there, didn't he, CBC and CTV, when they see a challenge to that, that's like work, isn't it? It's like a job. It's like, oh God, I have to actually think now. There's actually an alternative perspective to that one. And they think, no, I don't want more work. Like that, go away. So they just attack and say, you must be a liar, you must be whatever it is. I think there's something in there about who's funding you, and like, okay, if that makes it easier for you, then you don't have to think. Okay, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to try and understand it. So if that's what you want to do, then fair enough. But it's just sad that we have these people bouncing around that, they just don't know anything. It's a little bit sad, actually, because that's not how our system is designed. The system is designed on the sort of premise that the people who vote in elections and the citizenry, they're supposed to actually know something. They're supposed to be informed, but alas, many people like that.
Well, yeah, I was tempted to send it back to their boss and say, what the heck is this? But then I deleted it because I'd be just like one of them. And but I can't believe that what's written is just, we serve this community for how long, and this is what we get back. And then plus, it's full of lies and misinformation, and there's a threat in there that they're going to turn us over to our friends at CTV and CBC to investigate our reporting standards. Well, can you ask them to investigate their own reporting standards while they're at it? Can you ask them to investigate themselves? Because they could use an investigation. And I'm going to kick this off with a tweet that Elon Musk retweeted here, and this is what's going on here in Canada. If you look at this, the unkind truths, like The truth shall set you free. This is what this is saying. The truth shall set you free. If you do unkind truths, they're tough sometimes. And that's what we do. We're supposed to hold power to account. That's our job. That's media's job. Can you tell me that the CTV and CBC and Global and CP are doing their job holding power to account? That's our job. That's what that guy's mad at us for, because we're holding power to account. And then if you look at the kind lie, the misinformation, the disinformation, it leads to a dysfunctional system. And lo and behold, what do we have in Canada? A dysfunctional system that is full of misery. Half of Canadians can't meet their monthly obligations in a nation this rich. And we're going to show you the receipts for that today. It is absolutely abysmal. Yes, the elites are doing extremely well as they take from the top, as the masses, like Marie Antoinette said, they let them eat cake. That's basically what I think the masses are hearing right now. And the media is out there like the town crier, doing talking points for the government, not reporting the news, doing the job that they're paid to do, even though they take money out of your pocket. They tell talking points as opposed to the truth.
Did you see, on that note, did you see Mark Carney doing the Airbus thing yesterday? At the end of that weird announcement, there were some questions. And one of the questions was from the CBC, His Majesty's Royal Media Outlet. And the question was about the Honda thing. And the question was, can you confirm that report from Honda? And if you might, my liege, could you also explain could you talk about the challenge of trying to attract investment in Canada during this difficult global time or something? I was like, maybe, because I know we don't have it in the document, maybe I'm going to look for it, and then you can compare the reality to how I just presented it. But the question was about the Liberal Party, Liberal government's gigantic gamble on Honda going overboard, going down in flames. That's what the subject matter was. And the question was, can you confirm? He didn't confirm, because the question was so soft that he ignored it. So he didn't confirm. And then the second part of the question was, how are you working? How are you finding it to attracting investment during these difficult times? I'd love it. I would love it if that guy is watching now, because I would love for him to explain how that's scrutinizing power. Or is it just, I mean, why am I even asking that question? This person probably has no idea what that looks like. They don't know what it actually looks like to scrutinize power, because all they've ever seen is CBC. That has been a lapdog to power. That has been an assistant to power. And I'm going to find it now. So we'll watch it at some point during the show. We can promise that.
So here's the big question. That is 14 months. This is what they ran the election on. Jean Chrétien was even pushed up onto the podium. The old man himself was pushed out to the podium, and he said, we're going to build pipelines. We're going to build pipelines. And the whole crowd cheered. The Liberals. That was at the Liberal convention, the Liberal, the victory there, the Victory Party. And here it is. Canada's myopic energy approach threatens historic opportunity for producers. And that's for the Sonova CEO says that. I mean, it's been said over and over and over again. The focus on climate change, which is gone. Like it's gone. It's cheap, reliable energy. Yet this Liberal government, has obvious conflicts of interest in this climate agenda, obvious conflicts of interest, especially with the ties to the Brookfield stock, the options, their material options with Brookfield, and Brookfield being a heavy investor in carbon capture. And yet, here we are, and the chief executive of Canada's largest energy producer that warned the national conversation about developing the oil industry has become myopically focused on climate agenda. We have created a set of national policies and regulations that make resource development investment in Canada uncompetitive with the rest of the world. John McKenzie said in recent changes to the global energy market precipitated by the Iran war present an opportunity for Canadians, but only if they choose to seize it. Earlier this week, however, 6 activist groups wrote to the Prime Minister to warn about an unhelpful feedback loop of discourse about loosening restrictions on Canada's energy industry. there is a tug of war going on here in Canada for sure, from the climate extremists with Elizabeth May, Stephen Guilbeault. And then if you add in onto that is the ones that make the money off of it. Mark Carney with his options with Brookfield. You have the extremists that believe in it as an ideology. And then you have the people that are just making grift off of it, like Brookfield. And then you have on the other side Canadians that just want to put food on the table. And then you have the media that has been compromised, that are actually echoing these voices. And who's a loser in this? And I mean, they're all pushing back, and we've seen this through history. Like their investment is going south. I mean, we've done it on the show over and over and over again. $1 trillion is left. Many of the oil and gas companies here just give out dividends instead of reinvesting. And they've been burned before. Companies like Enbridge have been burned before. I talk about tech many times, over $1 billion investment, and they walked away from the oil sands. And they're worried that this whole thing is going to happen again. And here's Pierre Poilievre saying the grand illusion is colliding with reality. Business is calling out the BS. We can either be an energy superpower or we can have an industrial carbon tax. We can't do both. Yeah, there's an actual tug of war happening. And on one side, like I said, is the climate extremists, which most of the world has gone past. You talk about Larry Fink. He was a big believer in before with ESG, the BlackRocks and Vanguards. Bill Gates, they've scrapped it too with Microsoft. Even Greta Thunberg has moved off to a different fundraising platform. And who's left? Mark Carney. And he's compromised, he's conflicted, but that's never asked. But here's Mark Carney again, pitching carbon capture, industrial carbon tax. Take it away, Mark.
He said the national dialogue on further development of the oil sands has been myopically focused on the climate agenda and climate policy, and then investors have left Canada for more competitive jurisdictions. I'd like your thoughts, please.
Well, I start by observing the following, which is that the oil production in Canada, largely driven by the oil sands, is at a record high. It's moved up over the course of the last decade from 3 million barrels per day to over 5 million barrels per day. That brings great benefits to the country, but it also is a source of our emissions, is one of the biggest sources of our national emissions. And one of the factors, I'm going to anchor this in the discussion today, or what we're celebrating today, what AirAsia is doing, what Tony Fernandez has helped to lead. When you look at the biggest, fastest growing market, crucial to the future of Quebec, future of Canada, is building those links. What they're looking for, and you see it in the choice of the A220, is not just efficiency, but low emissions. One of the selling factors is...
Video froze there. Weird.
Well, he just goes on to say, it's a shame that we lost that there, because it's quite important. But he just goes on to, say things that are not true. That it makes us more
competitive,
desirable. It makes us more desirable to countries around the world and industries around the world. There simply is no evidence that that's true. And he tried to claim that the airline that's buying these Airbuses, that they're concerned about emissions. But they're talking about aircraft, it's like, and fuel efficiency and things like that. That's not really got anything to do with carbon capture in Alberta.
Well, they're stretching.
It's just very deceptive, not really based on reality, and very stubborn as well. This is the barnacleism that we've spoken about, that the Liberals are famous for. They've quite clearly made a mistake. They've banked on the wrong thing. They've put the mortgage on the wrong horse, but they still have an opportunity to cash out, and they're not going to do it, are they? They're refusing to do it. They're still saying, we believe that equine mammal is capable of being victorious in this race. If you say so, Mark.
I mean, it's kind of odd that in charge of Canada, that nation with the richest resource biodiversity, you put in charge a guy that says 80% of it should stay in the ground, if you read his book Values. It's kind of the wrong guy to be like in charge of a nation that is resource rich, seems to be conflicted with what Canada should be doing. And we got to remember that Mark Carney led the Net Zero Alliance. He put that together. He was the chair of the Net Zero Alliance. He was also the leader in GFANS. Like that was his, the financialized instruments for carbon credits and all, that was all his. Both of those are dead. So you want to talk about his accomplishments. Those are his two big initiatives, both dead, both failures in the world, complete failures. And his time at the Bank of England, I mean, you talk to most people in England, and it was a failure. The unreliable boyfriend. We had Douglas Carswell on. And then, but Canada, CBC, portrays him as the wizard, as Gandalf, as the Wizard of Oz. And yet he's still doing these talking points that are completely contradictory to the wealth of the Canadian public. And that's the big thing. It contradicts the path to wealth here in Canada, prosperity, and also millions of people in the world may face famine and starvation and death because of lack of energy, because Canada opines over a carbon tax that benefits the few at the expense of the many.
I mean, I'm not even sure that's true when you actually think about it. I think well, okay, maybe, but it's more about the punishment of the many, isn't it, rather than the benefit of the few. Like people like Mark Carney. I think one of the reasons that I'm not as interested in this idea that he's fiddling this, it's all about money for him. One of the reasons that doesn't appeal to me is that a man like Mark Carney could just trip over hundreds of millions of dollars pretty much. If he put his mind to it, he could make so much money. People like him, just the money is thrown at them. It's the Matthew principle, isn't it? I'm not convinced that he has to become Prime Minister of Canada and do all of these nefarious, shadowy deeds. So I don't know if it is like for the benefit of the few. I think in the end, what's more important is the punishment of the many. Because Mark Carney doesn't have to do this. Mark Carney could be making absolutely bags of money doing other things. But here he is blocking energy to the world. Not just Canada, we're talking about the entire planet. We're talking about people around the world who aren't going to get enough calories as a consequence of decisions made by that man. So I feel like it's less about hoarding cash for people like Mark Carney. I'm not persuaded that that's his primary motive. It seems to be ideological, and ultimately, therefore, it's about hurting the masses, which is just so dark, isn't it, when you look at it that way? But that's one of the things that ideology can make you do.
Yeah, we can only guess at his real reasons, but the obvious truth is right there, and he contradicts it. The obvious truth is to unleash the beast. That's the obvious truth. Get as much energy to the coastline as possible. Get as much energy to the coastline as possible. Do all you can to bring prosperity and wealth to this nation and livelihood and save people's lives in the rest of the world. That much is absolutely obvious. But no, he still is selling this ideology. Like the liberal policies of the last decade are all failures. They're all full of misinformation and disinformation, and they're just failures. Failure after failure after failure, and they're still pushing the same agenda. And here's the lady they continue to attack her all the time. The media went after her how many times on almost everything she does. Turns out she's been right most of the time. And then right now, Alberta is the golden goose. Alberta is the reason they didn't have a $75 billion debt. Instead, they had a $68 billion debt. Yet Mark Carney and Francois-Philippe Champagne, they walk up to the podium. We eliminated this much from the debt. No, you didn't. You didn't do jack. Alberta did it. Alberta did it because of what's going on in Iran. You didn't do jack.
Despite you as well. Despite you and your actions.
Yeah. And they could have done more. We wouldn't even have deficits if it wasn't for the last liberal decade of misinformation, disinformation. Like it's a government based on lie upon lie upon lie upon lie. strangulation by regulation, lie after lie. And we're going to show you all the receipts today. And if that guy, I can't remember his name now, was watching, show us where we're wrong. Show us where we're spreading misinformation. Just show us where we're wrong. We'd like to see it, because I can show you all the places that they've been wrong. And look at this, you know, like they're bragging here. We built an LNG terminal here and a propane terminal, and you know the TMX expansion. But at the same time, the United States has commissioned 8 large LNG export terminals. Australia commissioned 10. We don't get jack done. We get nothing done here. Like, I think about it, 14 months of this new government. He says it how many times? New government. Like, new government. What's done? What is done? Other than a lot of people getting a lot of big fat salaries and a lot of big expense counts. I'm going to show you that as well. But what's done? The only pipelines that have been approved right now are 2 going south. 2 going south. And the only other thing that's been done here is this government and the media here in Canada, the mainstream media, have vilified America, who we rested comfortably under their protection for ever. They vilify America so that they can prop up their own power. And I think Ian says it all the time. They do everything to maintain power, whatever it takes. They don't even care what they have to sacrifice to maintain power. And I think that's pretty obvious. They don't care what they must sacrifice to maintain power.
It's important to talk about Australia there. Australia built and commissioned 10 LNG export terminals. I think that's accurate. It's roughly accurate anyway, for the sake of argument. I mean, Australia is a country where they're also gone through this kind of existential crisis about how ridiculous their regulation regime is and how worthless their political class is and all the rest of it. And yet they still managed to do this. So this is like the beggar looking down on someone, you know? This is like the worst off person you know, looking down on someone else. And that someone else is us. We're right at the bottom of the pecking order. And just another thing about Australia, it has a fraction of the natural gas that Canada has. And also, consult an atlas, it's pretty much the most isolated country in the world. You know, it's like a continent. It's right off there away. There you go. Have we got him? Yep. It's miles away from anything. Whereas consult the very same globe or the same map, and you see that Canada, it's almost like Canada was designed by a creator to be the ultimate LNG salesman on this planet. It's like, okay, so we'll give them access to Europe. That's a huge market. Then they can also, if they want, go through the Suez Canal to India. And then we'll also give them the shortest route across the North Pacific, right down there to East Asia and all those growing economies who are all natural gas poor. It's almost like it was designed to benefit Canada. And Canada still somehow fumbled it. I mean, how? We know the answer. But I mean, still rhetorically, how? It took the Liberal Party to do that. It took something very, very special to do that.
But we also just recently purchased LNG from Australia, and they shipped it all the way from Australia, all the way around South America, and all the way up to the East Coast, when beneath the feet and on the East Coast there, they could frack and get all the LNG they need. And if you look at America and the magic of fracking, that's what makes America #1 in the world right now.
It's unbelievable, isn't it, America? I don't, like, a lot of people maybe that don't pay attention to this. They don't realize how extraordinary that is. America went from mega importer to the world's largest producer and an exporter. It used to be illegal in America to export oil or to export, I think, petroleum or something. They specified it in a certain way. They made it illegal because they were struggling so much. And then the Americans, you have to admit it, whatever you think of the Americans, as is their habit, the Americans just pulled a rabbit out of the hat, didn't they? Like, they just did it. They just got on with it and they just did it. While Canada sort of sat there sitting on its hands, you know, just doing nothing. It's just, It's no coincidence, is it, that the two countries that got something done, Australia and the US, now have considerably higher GDP per capita. In other words, are considerably wealthier than Canada, which did nothing. That isn't a coincidence.
This is Pam Wallen, former CBC CTV. She has her own podcast now. She has a former Liberal MP on that was part of the pathways when they created it. Listen to what she has to say today, though. I think we should get her on, by the way.
And Martha Hall Finley says, look, we've got to get past this insistence on carbon capture, because carbon capture means we're going to be environmentally sound and people will pay more for our energy. I don't think so.
No,
And
there's
even
no
you
such
said
thing as a
we
green
need to-
premium.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a green
what drove
premium.
you to say that?
Well, having worked on the Pathways CCUS project from its
Yeah.
inception, this was a very hard thing for me to conclude, but the world has changed. And if you look, two things. One, we as a country realize we have to start spending billions of dollars on the kind of infrastructure, our ports, our linear infrastructure, pipelines, national security. That means icebreakers in James Bay,
Defense,
like
serious
in the
defense.
Arctic. So we have very big expenditures coming up in this country that we should be spending on. At the same time, that particular CCUS project, the Pathways project, the first phase alone would be well over $20 billion and, importantly, contribute virtually nothing to global climate change. And this is a remaining problem in Canada because people responded to that op-ed, lots of support. But then a few said, well, we need the social license because Canada has to meet its Paris Agreement targets. I got to tell you, pull your head out of the sand. This is, we are now
Nobody
one of
cares
the
about the Paris
only,
Agreement.
and I take no pleasure in that.
Yeah, no, and it's
climate
tough,
change is a
sure.
problem,
Yeah.
but I also don't think it's
100%.
appropriate for Canada to sacrifice, the prosperity of Canadians for something the rest of the world isn't doing anymore, right?
Yeah.
For us to be so Boy Scoutish to think that we still need to meet our Paris Agreement targets when no one else will, and spend billions of dollars that is not revenue generating at the same time makes absolutely no sense. And if somebody says, well, we need the social license, my answer is we need the leadership to go back to the people who are still saying that and say, the world has changed. This is based on a false arrogance of Canada's role in the world and our contribution to climate. Let's have a really serious discussion about what Canada needs right now. So it is not against CCUS. We could actually enhance our technology, ultimately sell it. It's what does Canada strategically need to focus on right now?
I mean, those last couple sentences for there, bingo, bingo, bingo. Get that lady a chicken dinner, right? Because and she was one of the people that built out Pathways. She's a former Liberal MP, ran for the leadership of the Liberal Party as well. She works in the energy industry right now, and Pamela Wallen there is a big figure formerly with CBC and CTV. She's not getting the free sausage rolls anymore. I guess she's having to work for it, just like you and I. So she's having to sell truth, right? She's having to sell truth bombs. And you know what I mean? Like the truth shall set you free. And it's National Prayer Day. And we're going to talk about that later. We're going to honor somebody today. And the truth shall set you free. And the liberals do not like truth. Remember that, what was that, Inconvenient Lie, or what was that movie or that documentary put out by... An
Inconvenient Truth.
Inconvenient Truth. That's the thing with the liberals right now. They don't like truths. Inconvenient truths. They just don't like the truth. And the truth is,
also,
it's over.
This woman is saying pretty much what we've been saying for a long time now. We're apparently associated with, who? Proud Boys or something? Funded by America, some sort of words put together, mashed together by inarticulate people to describe a nasty thing. That's what we are.
Yeah.
All right? Us random nobodies. So what does it mean when a former Liberal MP, former candidate for the Liberal Party leadership, what does it mean when she says basically exactly what we've been saying for ages now? Is she also a proud boy now?
And let's not forget Pamela Wallin, who agrees there.
Because that person that sent that email was obviously a very limited individual. But I think he represents a certain constituency in this country. So that's why I'm taking it more seriously than maybe it deserves. But what is the answer to that question? What does it mean when people like this say the same things that we've been saying for a very long time? What does that mean? You know, does that actually mean that are they also on this, like, the nasty side or something? Or could it possibly be the case that there's some truth to these arguments?
And did Pamela Wallin find her journalistic integrity after she left CBC and CTV, or did they just compromise after people like her and Peter Mansbridge left? Because they used to be, you know, they used to do their job, but they don't. They don't for the last decade. They do not do their job. They're more interested in sausage rolls. And Pamela Wallin is putting this out. Well, maybe we'll reach out to her as well and see if we can get her on, because the state of media here, I mean, it's part of the problem. They're not held to account because it's time to move on. It's time to move on from this nonsense and bring prosperity back to Canadians that are on their knees. And a big thank you to Shannon there for that impressive contribution to independent media. We really appreciate that. To no end, we appreciate that. As my voice is still a little bit cracky, but I definitely say I'm feeling the best I have in about a week now. So that's the good news. So it is kind of like
Shannon is making you feel emotional. Your voice is cracking with because you're so affected by it.
I have some English elixir here. I have some English elixir, a tea with honey in it, to see if I can fight my way through it here. The show must go on, as they say. The show must go on. And she says we're a diamond in the rough. Well, I mean, we are definitely. We have a low budget, but we're working as hard as we can. And I think this is the best news show in Canada, I believe, when it comes to truth. Like, we do an actual news show. Whereas, you know, like there's a lot of podcasts out there talk about topics, and we do a lot of interviews as well. But we try to bring you the news as well. And that's going on, and with commentary. And here's the Financial Post putting out a piece. The financial media is, if you want to trust any media, besides us, is the Canada-Alberta MOU over before it began? Yeah, it's done. Mark Carney and them don't want to give it up, though. Is it screaming going around the back room? Is Stephen Guilbeault throwing stuff around the room? Is it Elizabeth May, like screaming into the wind, or finding the bottom of the bottle? What is she doing? I don't know. Looking for answers at the bottom of the bottle? Looking for answers, that's a song. And here's Corey Hogan, like an Alberta MP. Listen to what he has to say. Again, this guy can gaslight like none other. Take it away, Corey.
People want to separate?
I mean, I think everybody should be a little worried whenever data gets spilled out in that kind of uncontrolled fashion. That's obviously not the way any of this is supposed to work. So, look, I think that it's being investigated by the authorities. I think that's right and appropriate. But no, I'm not personally any more concerned than anybody else should be right now.
What do you think this does for the UCP standing? I'm sure you saw with the mention you had out there that UCP staffers were in on this thing. Do you think this should hurt their brand in some way?
Well, it certainly threw my eyebrows to the ceiling, and I guess we're going to have to see what comes out of all of that, too. I certainly...
Are we losing video? Like, what's...
I want to understand why people were there, but I also appreciate meetings happen, and I don't know the context in which that meeting occurred.
The Oil Sands Alliance says that any sort of carbon tax as part of the MOU is going to make the industry uncompetitive. Do you think that's going to scuttle the MOU? Because you guys are quite insistent that there has to be a carbon tax increase.
Yeah, look, there are three legs to this stool that we've created for making sure that we are not just meeting our climate obligations, but being competitive in a world where carbon competitiveness is increasingly important, and that's action on methane. That is, carbon capture and sequestration, and that is an industrial price on carbon. There are lots of ways that we can help the industry be competitive. There are lots of conversations we're willing to have. The Prime Minister's been clear we want to be faster on a regulatory point of view. And so I would encourage them to kind of broaden the table. But also I just want to underline, we are in negotiations and conversations right now. Sometimes positions are stated firmly, but we want to have constructive conversations.
Alberta separatism seems to be fueled by foreign actors, according to a report that's come out this week. Do you think your government needs to do something more about limiting this activity?
Well, I think all Western democracies should be seized with this issue. The reality is there are tools today that didn't exist 20 years ago that allow geopolitical adversaries to intervene in our elections in a way they previously couldn't.
And good. We'll talk about that later. We're going to have that later. On the foreign interference. But they keep talking about this decarbonized oil. Like, why don't they show a contract that they can sign that demands decarbonized oil where they refuse American oil? Why don't they show us a few contracts?
Russian oil.
Yeah, and just say whether I refuse to buy Russian oil, but we'd rather starve. We'd rather have our population starve to death than use that dirty American oil. Show us, Corey.
It's just a barefaced untruth. I think it's completely false. It's completely untrue to say that. There's really no evidence whatsoever to support these grand claims that they make. And I also just have to say, I have to point out this oxymoron of decarbonized oil. What do you think oil is? What do you think? Like, go knock on the door at a high school and ask for the chemistry teacher and say, "Hello, Mr. Chemistry Teacher. What is oil?" "Well, son, it's mostly carbon." It's like, we're going to decarbonize that carbon. What are these people talking about? What the hell are they talking about?
It's the magic drift.
I can't take it anymore.
It comes down to this, and Ian explained it really well before. What other nation in the world would tax its golden goose, put its own tariffs on, put its own sanctions on? We're basically taxing our most expensive, our biggest golden goose. Again, ask yourself, would Japan do this to its auto sector? Would it?
Or Sony? Like, hey,
Yeah,
Sony, you can only produce so many TVs.
Or yeah, would they do it? Would even the Germans go to Mercedes and BMW and says, "We don't want any more cars. You got to cut your cars back by half, or pay the government a 20% tax on every car you sell to the world"? They would go like, "What?" Because that's what they're doing. They're basically doing that. They're killing the golden goose in Canada.
Imagine the Kenyans or something like that, or the Colombians going up to the coffee producers. It's just like, "Sorry, lads, no more coffee. We've got to put a lid on this coffee. Just can't do it anymore." Or like Russia trying to cut back on gold mining. It is hilarious, isn't it, to try and contemplate. Or like we said, it doesn't have to be a natural resource. Another thing would be like the Swiss voluntarily shutting down their money laundering system.
All the bank
called
accounts.
Swiss banking. Yeah. Can you imagine that? Or like, or the Swiss like shutting down all of their ski resorts or something. It's just, none of this makes any sense. Or it's sort of, putting a limit on it anyway, putting some kind of massive ski resort tax in place. It's laughable, isn't it, when you look at it like that?
Yeah, somebody just said if we replace the CBC with this show, $1.5 billion for the garbage they pump out, and what we do with I don't even know, we're not even a decimal point on what they got. Do you know what I mean? And we do a better job than them on truth every damn day. And I'll put that to the test.
That's the power that's the power of at least trying to resist ideology. They've embraced ideology, so they're lost to the truth. But if you even just try to resist it, you will be many times more truthful.
This decision is a prime example of liberal indecisiveness, like waffling, misinformation, disinformation, whatever you want to call it. And who suffers? The Canadian military. Because look at the state of the Canadian military. Absolutely abysmal. Like a laughingstock of the world. Like, we actually have mercenaries that are fighting amongst themselves right now. We have the Auditor General went there and checked out 14 living accommodations for our men and women, and 7 of them are not fit for living in. Unsafe drinking water, toilets that don't flush. And then we also have soldiers that are living in their car because there's no place for them to sleep. And yet here we are, just Stephen Harper made a decision to buy F-35s. That was 11 years ago. 11 years ago. And then Trudeau nixed it, and then Trudeau gave it life again in 2023. And then Carney came in, and then they kind of like waffled. And here it is, 11 years later. And let's listen to, are we going to get the F-35? Let's listen.
So a key pillar of our strategy is to build at home, and to partner with like-minded allies such as Australia. We already have one great example, which is the Arctic over-the-horizon radar that we're jointly developing based on Australia's world-leading cutting-edge technology. But many more examples can follow. And given the changing nature of warfare, that means from AI to aerospace. The point is, the nations that invest in their own capabilities across strategic sectors and partner with like-minded allies will multiply their strength to form coalitions. And they become a more effective bloc to deter aggression, protect supply chains, and realize core economic interests. So that's why we're rapidly diversifying our partnerships. That's why we've signed 20 new economic and security agreements across 4 continents in the last 11 months. It's why we were the first non-EU country to join the Safe Defence Procurement Program in Europe. And it's why we're working with Australia to build a bridge between the Trans-Pacific Partnership, Mr. Malcolm, operation, build a bridge between the TPP and the European Union. We're successful, we'll create a new trading bloc of 1.5 billion people. Now, Australia understands well the value of coalitions. Your regional partnerships, including AUKUS and the Quad, our critical minerals alliance through the G7, which Australia is a part of, multiply Australia's power and overall effectiveness. My final point is that middle powers working together can not only build true sovereignty, we can also help, underscore help, shape the next global order. Australia and Canada can't compel like the great powers, but we can convene. We can set the agenda, shape the rules, and organize and build capacity through coalitions that deliver results at speed and global scale. Because we have 2 advantages. It's clearer every day. We have 2 advantages that the hegemons lack. The first is legitimacy, and the second is trust. Australia and Canada have built this up over a century. We respect our commitments. When we sign deals, we honor them. When we join multilateral efforts, we multiply their impact. Other countries know we mean what we say and value our partnership. In contrast, the hegemons can compel, but that comes with costs, both reputational and financial. Change through compulsion doesn't last. By contrast, using trust to convene like-minded nations working together.
That's good. He just can't resist. He just can't resist of just sticking a stick in the eye of America. And he talks about AUKUS. You've got to remember that Canada's not part of AUKUS. That, again, is an arrangement between Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America. Canada...
He also talks about critical minerals alliances with Australia. Australia and the US are part of that Pax Silica thing. Canada's not.
I know, it's just buffoonery. Again, more buffoonery. And Canada has done many things wrong in our deal with CUSMA. It's been proven time and time again that we're the ones that did things wrong according to CUSMA several times, where our hands are not clean. And he talks about how, we're the only ones that can be trusted. We've neglected our military. We've neglected our military. We've neglected our commitment to keep it at 2%. We've neglected that for how long? We've relied on the Americans to take care of our military needs. And then he says we're going to invest. Where? When? How? We're going to outsource our submarines again. We're not going to build them. We don't even build our own ferries. Send them to China.
He's talking about legitimacy, though. Given all the problems at home, all the democratic shortfalls of his government and his party, should you really be talking about legitimacy? You know, a country that has at least two, maybe you could say more than two, but two main active separatist movements, you know, has completely off the top of my head, completely improvising here, but you know, he's just sponsored or he's just selected a governor general, the king's representative, who refused to say whether she believed in the king. Like, where's the legitimacy? I know that might sound abstract to a lot of people, but that's the Canadian political system. The entire legitimacy of the government is derived from the Crown. Now the Crown's representative in Canada, chosen by Mark Carney, refuses to say whether she even believes in the Crown. Talk about legitimacy. Where's the legitimacy there? Where's your legitimacy come from? Where does Mark Carney's majority come from? Where's the legitimacy associated with that? Is it legitimate? You know, why are you saying things like that? And then he's also trying to say, unlike the hegemons, we don't break promises. You know, we're good promise keepers. We're oath keepers. I think it's not just the United States that is very surprised and even feeling a little bit betrayed by Mark Carney's decision to go and kiss the emperor's toes in Beijing. Is that not a betrayal? You told the Canadian people, and therefore you told the entire world, that China was this great threat, the greatest threat to Canada, that it threatens the Western way of life. Your previous, you know, your predecessor, Justin Trudeau, lined up with the United States, gave his promise to the United States that Canada would join the US on sanctioning or, you know, tariffing EVs out of China. Completely betrayed the Americans on that. Do you know what I mean? Like, these are just a few things that are just at the surface, at the top of my head here. There are many more examples, I think, that I could mention. So it's just false on the face of it. And then there's also the other thing. You can talk all you like about being an oath keeper and all the rest of it, and we're good and honest and good old Canada. It's a bit different, isn't it, when the United States, when you actually are either a or the hegemon of the planet, they have a lot more decisions to make. So yeah, they're going to make a lot more people unhappy. Canada, as Mark Carney and Francois-Philippe Champagne keep saying, most people don't think about Canada. Most people, it doesn't even enter their mind unless you remind them, unless you shout Canada in their face. Canada doesn't have anything like as busy a life as the United States. You know, they're nowhere near as responsible as the United States. So obviously you could try and pretend that you're the nice guy, but that's not really a compliment to yourself there, is it? That's actually a bit of a critique that you're so peripheral that you don't even have any responsibilities.
Here's in committee here when they ask McGuinty, the defense minister, on the decision on those F-35s.
About the fighter planes. So 88 F-35s or a mixed fleet that could include the Gripen as well? Well, the decision to buy 88 planes hasn't been made. We have 16 on order, but the analysis is continuing. So the door isn't closed to a mixed fleet. Well, the question of the fighter plane fleet is under review, so nothing is being excluded. Okay. Now, there's an article by Radio-Canada from this morning that said that the government is trying to pick a fleet of detection airplanes with a certain percentage of Canadian components that will be compatible with the future fighter aircraft such as the F-35. So how will the government put the emphasis on the Canadian content? What aircraft are you referring to? This is an article from this morning. You might have come across it on Radio-Canada. So Canada is trying to pick quickly a radar aircraft with significant Canadian parts or components in it that will be compatible with the future F-35 or other planes. Well, the AWACS, or the AWACS question and the purchase of this sort of aircraft will be the first in the country's history. We've never had this kind of aircraft. It is being looked into. We are exploring the market, internationally speaking. It also has to do with, of course, it ties into NATO. It has to be interoperable in NORAD.
Okay.
With our
It's
American.
beyond painful, because again, it's like 11 years. Make a decision. Like, holy cow.
Just unable to give a straight answer as well. You'd think at this point, after all these years, you'd think they would be able to speak cleanly about this subject.
So if they don't pick one jet, then they're making a political decision that is just made for politics and not for the betterment of the military. Because we don't have a big enough Air Force to have multiple jets. That's been said over and over again, to have the parts things and the training and all that kind of stuff. We don't have enough. You know, if you're as big as the American Air Force, sure, you can have multiple jets, and you do that over time. But to go and get some Gripens and some F-35s and do a blended thing, that's to appease, like, politics again. That's to appease politics, because in Canada, that's not enough jets, and it's not enough training in the parts and all kinds of stuff. It's just, again, just utter nonsense. Make a decision. I mean, you've also seen the F-35s in combat recently, twice. And they've been pretty damn successful. And most nations, the Israelis, what do they fly?
I think they have a mixed fleet, but yeah, F-35s.
Well, they have a bigger Air Force as well, though, right? Do you know what I mean?
They're a vastly more serious military.
I mean, the jets we have right now, I think they offered them somewhere, and they say, you're just going to get in the way. They can't even communicate with the modern jets. So they're just like, no, just leave them on the ground. Silly buggers. And here's another one. We talked about this. When did we talk about this? About like a month ago? This Harper Air plans to build the Arctic facility, which makes sense to have a naval facility in the Arctic, right? Because Russia's got a couple up there. But the Liberals are axing plans to build that naval facility in the Arctic that was first unveiled in 2007 by Harper. According to the Globe and Mail, citing anonymous sources, the Nanizivik naval facility on Baffin Island was supposed to project Canadian ownership on the high north, but was downgraded to a summer filling station, ultimately never began operations. And we highlighted that because it was only operational a couple months of the year, and they fill the tanks, because those are filling tanks. You can see there in the picture there, those 3 tanks. They would fill them, and then they would actually send the fuel out for testing and wait a couple of weeks to say if they could use it. Yeah, see if the tanks were leaking like seawater into them, so that, you know, like if we could put it into the ships. Why not just leave it in the ships, and you're only running it a few months, I think 8 weeks of the year, something stupid.
I think it was 3 weeks. I think it's like even ridiculous. Less than you're saying.
So listen to that Laurel and Hardy kind of scheme. Have tankers go up there, offload the fuel into these tanks that may or may not leak, check the leak by sending the fuel out, samples of the fuel out back to Ottawa, wait weeks to get an answer back, and then get the A-OK to use it or not.
And this as well from a political party, a party that controls the government, that is apparently completely obsessed with CO2 emissions. How much carbon dioxide we put in the atmosphere. Does that sound CO2 friendly to you?
The doctor here, I don't know, is it Dr. Cornelius here? I think he nails it. The naval facility looks about as impressive as the space pad in Nova Scotia. That's like, we are an SNL skit, like, gone rampant. Like,
I think that looks more impressive.
That is actually looks more impressive than the gravel pad. But it just in contrast, show SpaceX's pad there, in Tesla there, and then show the Nova Scotia one, and then show a Russian port, and then show this one, and ask yourself, what the heck?
And in a hot war, how hard would that be, do you think, to disable? I'm going to say very, very easy. That's my instinct.
Like, did any of these people go anywhere and just, like, see how other people do things? Like, buy some global satellite pictures from Google, or just from maybe, like, Russia or from the US. You know what I mean? This like, figure some stuff out. Maybe don't have incompetence everywhere. How much did we spend on that garage we built in the territories? That's still not
Was it
complete.
1.6 million or something?
Like 10 years later, it was a 2,000 square foot garage, and it's still not complete. And it was built net zero. Timu space pad, yeah. It's you know what? It would be funnier if it wasn't that many Canadians are like literally going without while the government wastes your tax dollars. Literally wastes your tax dollars on these scams, and there's people lining their bloody pockets with money. Like the Nova Scotia one is just like sticks out like a sore thumb. We have, you know, they lease the property for $13,200 from the Nova Scotia government, and then lease it back to the Canadian government for $20 million a year. Think of the profit
Talking
difference
about
there.
Timu projects, I just wish it was Timu taxes. I agree it's Timu projects, but it's like Cartier taxes, isn't it? So something's going on between the expensive taxes and then the garbage projects. What happens in the middle? What happens when they put it in the sausage maker?
The truth shall set you free. So the more truth we can get out there, the more people can push back on this. Because obviously not enough truth is getting out there because there's still a lot of people voting for the Liberals and keeping them in power. We will not get accountability in this nation until we get a change in government. There will be no accountability until we get a change in government. And stop funding the media. And then let's go back to that EV story here. This thing is another example of an absolute failure of policy here. Billions, like I think it's like 55 billion or something, north of $50 billion wasted in subsidies from federal and provincial levels onto battery plants and EV plants. And I don't know of one success story, not a one. And listen to this clip here.
When asked about Honda, the Prime Minister pointed out the auto sector is facing challenges because of U.S. tariffs. But some in the industry say this is really about the U.S. decision to turn away from EVs. The Honda plant in Alliston, Ontario was set to add 1,000 new jobs in a $15 billion expansion. According to a report out of Asia, Honda is shelving a plan to build an EV factory in southern Ontario. In a statement to CTV News, the car maker said the content of the article was not released by Honda, and we have nothing to report at this time. The federal finance minister remains confident the plan isn't dead.
The word that they used was to put that on hold, so we'll see what the future is ahead.
The Conservative leader contends the Prime Minister's auto strategy is to blame for the plan not moving forward.
He claims that we're going to replace 83% of our automotive sales to the U.S. by making electric vehicles that people don't want to buy.
Mark Carney says the problem is the trade war with the U.S.
Obviously, there's challenges with the U.S. tariffs, unjustified tariffs in the auto sector. We continue to work with companies in the sector.
In February, the Japanese ambassador to Canada told CTV News expansion in this country is directly linked to the ability to export to the U.S.
With private companies, that means they have to calculate to increase profit. So Kuzuna is a very important part of the calculation.
Some in the auto industry blame the Trump administration for removing EV incentives and mandates in the U.S.
This is really about the Americans hollowing out.
Good. Yeah, so it's the Trump administration. That part's true. The Trump administration removed the EV mandates, lessened the tailpipe emissions. And what did the stocks of GM and Ford do? Shot up, just like that. Because they're selling more cars, they're building them cheaper, and the consumer wins. And what else happened? Honda said, we're going to build plants there. Toyota said, we're going to build plants there. Stellantis said, we're going to build plants there. They're getting the attraction, and people are going back and manufacturing in the United States of America. It is the market. I don't know how many times we say it. It is the market that people want access to. That's the people that buy cars. And Japan, the cars they build here, 80% of them get sold into the United States of America. If there's no Kuzma deal, Why would Japan make cars? To put them in fields here like China does with their cars, put them in fields to rot? It's absolutely crazy. And then Carney blaming
like China, we
tariffs.
could find our own version of Canada to dump them on.
And Canada, Carney, I mean, blames tariffs. I mean, it is an absolute like misinformation there. Misinformation. And it's straight from the horse's mouth. They'll tell you, no. But they hide in the lies. And then, I mean, CTV actually did a good piece on it. But, the main people doing the pieces like CBC and that, well, they don't get called to account. Like, nobody challenges Mark Carney and said, that's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. Because Mark Carney, he spewed that nonsense as he's walking up the stairs and then turned and walked away. Called it tariffs and then turned and walked away. Nobody could challenge him on it.
Democracy.
Democracy not in action. The squashing of democracy. But we got Pierre Poilievre one more time. We're just going to go to Pierre because I don't want to overdo it. We did a lot of this on yesterday, but here's Pierre Poilievre.
Well, I just feel like because I included this.
Okay,
this
play
one,
this one here.
yeah. Because this is what I talk. Because we talk about democracy, talk about scrutiny. Just listen to the question that was asked of Mark Carney about Honda.
Honda is reportedly suspending plans for a $15 billion EV plant in Ontario indefinitely. Has the government been informed of this decision, and how do you convince companies to invest here in Canada when there's so much global uncertainty?
Well, thank you for your question. First, we're in constant contact with all the major automakers, actual, like in other words, currently producing in Canada, and potential. And that includes Honda. So we're in discussions with them constantly. And look, there's no announcement today, to be clear. How do we convince companies to invest in Canada? A couple of things. One is our country has twice the rate of investment, foreign direct investment, than the United States, adjusted for the size of our population, twice the rate. We're at the highest level of foreign direct investment in Canada for 20 years. What you're seeing today, thank you, grâce aux travailleurs et travailleuses ici, les innovateurs, grâce à Airbus, is a huge vote of confidence in the innovation and commitment of the Quebec government, but of the workers here. How do we continue to convince and continue to increase that investment? Connectivity, to borrow Tony's word, those trade deals, those 20 deals, the deal with ASEAN, the deal with India, moving forward like that. Confidence, le mot de Madame la Première ministre du Québec, l'audace. Ça, c'est le moment pour l'audace. It's the moment to be bold.
Well, I mean, that garbled, inarticulate answer, we just never really need his answers, do we? Because you might as well go to the English as a second language facility nearest you and speak to some random person outside there. You get about as much information. But it's the question that I thought was remarkable. That was a CBC reporter. That bit was cut off in that video. But a CBC reporter says, just like the softball question, like, how do you attract investment in this uncertain global time? It's like,
they frame it for
you're
him.
not doing your job.
They
You're not even doing the bare minimum.
Yeah, they basically frame it out for him and just basically want to just it's just like a waste of bloody time. And when he talks about Canada's, like on a per cap, like on a adjusted for population, twice the investment in the US, we've had a couple of big mergers and acquisitions here in Canada. That's what's distorting the numbers. That's what's distorting the numbers here in Canada. Like, when Tech got bought out. Tech got bought out by an English company. And then, what our AI company that we had here, was it CoreWeave or whatever, got bought out by, I think, a European company. That's what's doing it. It's not investment into Canada. They're just buying out the companies. So nothing changes as far as in the ground. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no investment other than a company buys tech out. So there's no changes in tech. Like, there's not a new mine that's put into play. They bought tech. And that's billions of
Shell
dollars.
also bought Arc Resources, didn't they?
Yeah,
recently?
so it's misleading again, in the liberal vein. It's misleading. Where's the investments into the ground? Investments into the ground that create jobs. Where's that? Because that's what the reporter should ask. You're talking about that number. How many of those actually created jobs, or how many of those were mergers and acquisitions that really did nothing but change the ownership of that company? Mark Carney, E-I-O-I-E-I.
Often comes with job cuts as well, doesn't it? Which they ridiculously call rationalization. Like that is a common feature.
But again, it's more misleading. It's more misleading information. It's more misleading information. Okay. Pierre Poilievre on the Honda thing.
By the news of Honda's cancellation of $15 billion of automotive production in Ontario. This follows on the collapse of auto production under this Liberal government. It has fallen by 50% since the Liberals took office. Most of that collapse happened before the tariffs even took place, but under the leadership of then Liberal Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne. What we're seeing from Mark Carney is not a plan, but an illusion. He claims that we're going to replace 83% of our automotive sales to the U.S. by making electric vehicles that people don't want to buy, that we don't make, and selling them into markets where we don't sell and where they're already being purchased from elsewhere at half the price. To call it an illusion would be generous. It's more like a Liberal hallucination. What we need is a real plan. Mark Carney, by the way, has had a year. He said he was going to save automotive jobs. He said he would have a deal a year ago. And in that time, what has he done? He's delivered even more job losses, even higher costs, and even more taxes.
The Conservative Party must be watching our show and they start talking about the grand illusion. We did that, wasn't it, a couple days ago? Talked about the illusionist.
I watched that movie as well, The Illusionist. I watched that at the weekend.
It
Weird.
is a grand
Times
illusion.
like that where you think this is all an illusion. This is all just this is all a creation. We're in a computer simulation or something.
I wish.
Then we can turn it off.
And then this guy, I don't know, like David Cochrane, like he's got to be the head muncher on the sausage rolls. Can we get a sausage roll before we queue up the head muncher? Let's go with the head munchkin.
The global shifts and everything, but it's really about Donald Trump, right? I mean, Joe Biden slammed down the gas pedal on the move to EVs with the Inflation Reduction Act, and Trump is hitting the brake, putting it in reverse, and paying people to stop green energy developments, right? It's a total disruption of the transition and the market and the consumer preference, and the tariffs makes it tough to build stuff in Canada now.
So if you go back to Joe Biden, as you just did, I mean, they tried to force a change on the American public and on the Canadian public that didn't take. People were not clamoring to get EVs at all. In fact, they were bringing in more and more policy constraints in order to make people move to that space. And quite frankly, it hasn't worked. And I would add one more to the pile of reasons why this is happening. There was a positive policy choice made by this government to allow 49,000 Chinese EVs to enter into this market. Absolutely, that's going to come into consideration when Honda takes a look at what they're going to be doing in this country, as anybody else would too. So it's not just an isolated Donald Trump global problems issue. It's positive kinds of decisions that this government is taking that also adds into the mix and should be acknowledged as well.
Well, I mean, is that a surmise? Are you surmising that the Chinese quota has something to do with it? Because the Nikkei report doesn't mention that. They talk about instability, low demand. They're going to pivot more to like hybrids as opposed to pure EVs.
You want my proof point? My proof. Yeah, okay. So my proof point is the actual press release sent out in January of 2026 by the person who represents the foreign car makers here in this country saying the 49,000 is going to be a problem for us. So there's my proof point.
Okay. No, I wasn't questioning the...
He's an absolute embarrassment to himself. He's an absolute embarrassment to himself. Remember that old saying, all roads lead to Rome? For Cochrane, all roads lead to Donald Trump. All roads lead to Donald Trump. That should be his motto. Everything is Donald Trump's fault. People don't want to buy EVs in America, not because Joe Biden, because they weren't buying them then, the majority of the population.
I was just looking.
It was because, I don't know what that was. That was obviously CSIS and that tapping in. Because they knew Donald Trump was going to win the presidency, and then he was going to push back on EVs. What? Come on, David. Just an ounce of journalism, just an ounce. And then you push back on her because she tells you the truth, and you want proof. The proof is in the pudding. You see, it's basically like he's saying, oh, the whole world is going to melt down now because we don't have this EV mandate that we're pushing people. I'd like to know how many CBC employees actually drive Teslas.
I want to know. I want to get a ruler out and measure how high Lisa Raith's eyebrow went. And she was, as for that brief point, she was like, I think that must be her angry face. I don't think she was very happy.
Well, I mean, it's ridiculous, right?
It was an absurd line of questioning, yes. But I mean, the problem is he'd prepped that, hadn't he? And he'd read that article on Nikkei Asia. He'd read the article that everyone's talking about and mastered it. And he thought, okay, I've done my homework, everybody. And then she mentioned something that wasn't in that text. So he's like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute. This doesn't...
You know something I don't know?
Mark Carney says it's tariffs. Mark Carney's right.
Mark Carney says it's Orange Cheeto Hitler man. And I'm inclined to believe him.
Again, the theme of this show, a decade of misinformation, lies, corruption, waste, fraud, abuse. You pick it. And here is the master. What do they call the mini Gandalf? What was he? Is he Sauron or who is
Saruman is not a mini Gandalf. Saruman is Gandalf's senior. He's the senior wizard, but he goes to the dark side. So, if anything, Carney would be Saruman and this little fellow would be Gandalf. But I can't even have a laugh about that. I can't even put that in. I can't make an absurd joke about Justin Trudeau being Gandalf. I'm not going to accept
I'm going to go with he's Gollum, if anything. Let's take it away, Gollum. My pressure.
Years ago, we bet big on electric vehicles. We know the whole world.
Whoa. Start it over again because it'll cut there because I want to show you something funny after this. Do this. Do it again.
Years ago, we bet big on electric vehicles. We know the whole world's going to be driving them one day. We want them to be built here in Canada. We want the jobs and the great salaries that go with them going to Canadian workers. So we invested in critical minerals, in clean tech, in the renewable energy that the industry is going to need. And we put out a call to businesses. We have the resources, we have the government support, we have the workers needed to build EVs. And Honda answered.
That's good. As he he gets into his dance on there. But when I watched that, I thought, if that's not the Dollar Shave Club ad, like somebody in McKinsey & Co. Have you remember the Dollar Shave Club ad? Play the Dollar Shave Club ad here. Play this ad here from the Dollar Shave Club and tell me that they didn't just rip this off.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month.
That's good. That was Chrystia Freeland, the bear, reaching out. You know that that ad, that 38 million views, and I'm sure they ripped that off as Trudeau jumped out of the hall there, just like, we got jobs, we got this. You got Jack.
He did it a few times. Remember, he did it also for the houses. You know, I can't remember the flat pack houses. He did one where he's like walking through the corridor. But I mean, it's not that ad that originated that. I think that goes back at least to the Nouvelle Vague, the French New Wave in the 1950s and 60s. At the very least, those long shots. Obviously, Tarantino did it as well, and Scorsese and people like that in America. But yeah, certainly not a Trudeau innovation. Anyway.
No. How many failures in Canada? EV plants. How many failures? Bright Drop, GM, Bright Drop. Remember that one? Northvolt, the Quebec battery plant. Provincial commitments up to $2.9 billion. Line Electric, that Quebec, the buses that lit on fire, the Quebec bus thing. Tiga Motors, like Bright Drop. Like, how many? Billions and billions of dollars put into this. Any successes? Any that you know of?
Well, whatever's happening today, isn't it? That's usually what they'll say. So then they'll talk about Airbus. Our success with Airbus.
I'm talking about the EV stuff. The EV investments. Stellantis, how much money they get? They gave Stellantis billions of dollars. Nothing. Jack. Like you would think you would get something out of all this nonsense. But here's our little man himself, Francois Philippe Champagne, telling you, bragging again, how good Canada is.
But Canada is kind of a lighthouse. You know, when I compare ourselves to other G7 nations, we are on solid grounds. The fundamentals are strong. IMF would say we have the strongest fiscal position of any G7 country. Our growth is twice as much as most G7 countries. If you exclude the United States, we're growing twice as much. We're faster than any European colleagues, twice as much as Germany.
But these are tall midgets, right?
Well, I would say you have to compare. I mean, if you don't want to compare with the G7, then pick who you want to compare. But, you know, Canada is not immune to what's happening in the world. I mean, we have learned that to COVID and other crises, what's going on in the Middle East. We're not immune. So you have to look in relative terms and absolute terms to say, where do we fit in that? But when you say that, I don't think, you know, I was at the G7 and the Vice Chancellor of Germany, Finance Minister, is in town this week. We were kind of comparing notes, you know, you're looking at that. Our growth is twice as much as Germany, twice as much as Japan, 3 times Italy, faster than the UK, faster than France. So when I say growth does not happen just by magic. Growth happens because you take policies, and I'll stop there to refer to what the IMF director said. She really said when we were there last time, there's only 2 countries in the G7 who has the fiscal capacity to invest. It's Canada and Germany, because we're the only 2 with a AAA credit rating. But she said if you're smart enough to invest in growth-enhancing activities, you'll see that in the revenues. And she mentioned infrastructure, she mentioned housing, she mentioned productivity and innovation. And I think that's the path that we have, you know, taken, while at the same time focusing on affordability. Because if you and I went out of this room and I did media, it's the concern is housing, it's grocery, and it's gas. So that's also the reality we have to take care of.
Right. Okay. So you talked about the fiscal situation and Canada having one of the best fiscal situations in the G7, the Western world, whatever. But we are, I'm just curious about this. I just want you to explain this a little bit, because you are running historically large deficits in Canadian terms, and you had some extra money in the update, and you invested it rather than paid down, rather than reduce the deficit with it. So that implies to me that ideally, in an ideal world, you'd like to invest more than you're investing right now. I'm just wondering, in the absence of like...
Yeah. I mean,
well,
again...
How funny is that? Well, first thing I want to say is the guy asking the questions is the fella who you wouldn't know this if if you relied on the CBC and the usual outlets. You literally would not know that this happened. But the guy asking the question says the one who referred to Jamil Javani as ugly, said he was too ugly to be successful in politics.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of comment that, had it been made by somebody associated with the right about, let's say, I don't know, a woman, that would have ended that person's career. They would be completely ostracized. But here he is having a chat with Francois-Philippe Champagne, living it up, having a great time. People literally don't even know that he said that. There we go. So there's that. The other thing I want to say is he referred to those countries as tall midgets. Number one, that's very insensitive to your interlocutor, I would say. My chum. But the second thing I would say is that's another, like, I don't know, maybe that's something to celebrate, but once upon a time that would have been a cancelable offence, wouldn't it? So I don't know. That's just interesting to note. But then the other thing, yeah, I'm glad he said, for all, I haven't said all that, I haven't cleared my throat there. I am glad he said that. This guy, this Lux Maxer, who is obviously way more attractive than Jamil Javani, apparently, in his own mind at least. I love that he brought that up because it's the necessary slapdown to that stupid remark that Francois-Philippe Champagne makes every single day of his life. He must do it in his sleep. He must literally be sleeping and be like, second strongest fiscal position in the G7. It's like, no one's buying that because those economies are all dysfunctional basket cases anyway. They all have debt crises of their own. And they certainly all have growth crises, except for the United States. So don't compare yourself to those people. It's stupid. It makes you look stupid.
Well,
stop making yourself look stupid. And by extension, Canada.
Even more so, even comparing Canada and the United States. The United States is a very complex economy and the world's largest economy, the world's currency. Like, I mean, the United States, all the leading indicators are banging the drum for like a huge growth spurt. You know, Elon Musk is calling for double-digit growth. They have the technology, they have the investment, they have the brains, they have everything. They want more energy. Canada can deliver that. And yet here's Mark Carney and the Liberals trying to deny energy, the thing that we could deliver for them. And we're trying to like put sticks in their eyes and put roadblocks up. But here's some reality again from the Financial Post. Look at this. Here's the reality. What Francois-Philippe Champagne said, you know, Canada people want to invest in it. What's this then, Francois-Philippe Champagne? Investors are demanding more to hold our debt. And Canadians pay the price. Why would they want more? Why would they want more? Why would they want a premium on Canadian government bonds? And it's the highest it's been in a decade. If it's so great, why? Ask yourself, Francois-Philippe Champagne, why would investors, and the Canadian dollar is being dumped at a record pace as well. Why? Why is the question to ask. Why?
It's interesting as well, though. We wouldn't want to inflict more champagne on our viewers, but later on in that sit down, he says, you know, you've heard of the phrase demographics is destiny, I assume, or demographics are destiny. That's an old cliche. And he says, you know, a lot of people say demographics are destiny. I don't agree with that. I think energy is destiny. Do you know what I mean? Like, what? You're saying that? You were saying that? There's just no end. Like the deceit, the inversion of reality, there's no end to it. This is like, you know, sometimes people write messages and they express pity towards us for doing this every day. I'm gonna take some of that pity. I'm gonna bank some of that pity because this is like serious torment. This is like being tortured.
Take some of it and dry the tears because we shouldn't be in this place, and it's because of deception, deceit, and theft, and corruption and waste. You talked about it yesterday. You said back in the 1800s, 1900s, some of these MPs would be like tried and convicted for what they've done, like financial malfeasance, financial like destruction of the nation. And look at this. You know, they talk about their best pals. And look at the approval ratings right here of Keir Starmer, Frédéric Merz, and Emmanuel Macron. You know, the one thing they haven't been able to do in Europe is control the media like they do here. Like that's the one trick that Carney has over these three clowns, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Like they control the media here in Canada. I mean, there's offshoots like Ian and I'm gonna need power. I'm going to need power. I'm going to need more lithium crystals. I'm losing power.
Mertz is the odd one out there. Like, well, I suppose Keir Starmer's like an all-time great when it comes to dropping the ball. But Mertz has just got here. You know, he's just got in the door, and they already absolutely despise him. I mean, that's an achievement, isn't it? Where Macron's just laughing at them. Macron's been despised since 10 years ago or something like that. So yeah, Keir Starmer though looking very porcine there.
Yeah, I didn't think Keir Starmer would last this long. Like, I don't think. I mean, I think he's going to go.
Very few people did. By the way, we had a few generous friends have contributed. Anthony Russell,
Thank
and
you.
our excellent friend Boye 180, who's
a frequent friend of the show and a frequent contributor. Thank you very much. But here's another. I mean, again, they could come to the show and we could give them better answers. The federal finance minister, Francois Philippe Champagne, announced Burgundy's initial $175 million loan to the Acadie diamond mine in December 2025. It's now filed for insolvency after it took the $175 million. I mean, I could have told them that diamond mines are out of favor. Why? Do you know why diamond mines are done?
Fake diamonds.
What's that?
Because of fake diamonds?
China, because they make diamonds for almost like lab-grown diamonds, all these different types of diamonds, and nobody wants to pay. You know, it was a very well-controlled market with De Beers, and then that's basically, it's very hard for most people to see. You see all these young girls walking around with these 6-carat diamonds on their finger, you know, and then they look very much like a diamond, and you know they're either moissanite or lab-grown diamond and stuff like that. And they're still paying quite a bit for these diamonds, but the resale market on those are almost nothing. Like you basically, if you try to go hawk that, you're not going to get anything for it. You're basically paying a marketing fee.
But it's a good thing, though. I think. I mean, the diamond industry is associated with some horrible practices, isn't it? I don't think anybody's going to moan the end of that industry.
Well, I mean,
I guess bad for Canada, though. I should rephrase that. I mean,
they build the Canadian diamonds as polar diamonds, and there was a premium on them because they were, you know, like
ethical.
Like what do they call the ones in bloodstones and stuff like that? But
yeah, blood diamonds. Yeah.
But yeah, the market's gone. But why would you give them $175 million? It's good to bad. Like, do you think the diamond market was going to turn around? No.
Well, and if you do, you probably should not be finance minister. That I would say, if you couldn't see that coming.
And then here's another one their files. They promised to double housing, and then ownership hits post-war low. And this is the story from Holly Dorn at Blacklocks. Rates of home ownership for young families now are at post-war low. That's according to StatsCan. And that 40% of Canadians believe the nation's best years are behind us. Isn't that crazy? That's the Liberals. They own that. Yeah, Francois Philippe Champagne says, you know, we're the best in the G7. You know, we can do this, that, and everything. Everything's going to be all right. I talked to my mother. She lives in a big house. Everything's great. Canada has seen home ownership rates decline in recent years after peaking in 2011. And then something happened. StatsCan's noted overall young adults increasingly spending more years living with their parents, less time building up equity through home ownership, and less likely to marry and start a family in their 20s and 30s. Living arrangements and home ownership outcomes for young adults in Canada have changed significantly over the last few years. Yeah, they've lost hope. I'm going to show you some stuff in a bit here that's just going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your mind. And a lot of people here in Canada say, looking into Canada's future, would you say the best years are ahead of us? 37% yes, they're behind us. And only 32% said that the best years are ahead of us. They likely have government jobs or elected officials. The elite in Canada have done extremely well. There's no doubt about it. The elite in Canada have done extremely well. They benefited from cheap labor, from temporary foreign workers. You said, did you put it in, the Conestoga guy? Is that in here somewhere?
Yeah, it's not the next one, but the one after. So
anyway, the share of young Canadians living with the parents doubled. That's according to a study as well. But here we go, John Tibbetts. No, this is that one here. You might have to find it. John Tibbetts, the Conestoga president of the Conestoga College, who had, I think it was 86%.
It's Brian Lilly. So if you just do the tweet, the Brian Lilly tweet.
86% was his enrollment was foreign students. And what they did to that community there, they had, like unemployment rates, banging on the door at 20%. Healthcare, people couldn't access because there was just lineups, and then inflation and everything. And this John Tibbetts collected salary of $600,000. And then when he was in committee hearing, he's like, why did they ask him, what do you think of the impacts of what you were doing to the community? Well, I thought it was, I was doing what I was supposed to do. $600,000 he took home as a salary. And the Conestoga College built up a huge surplus in there, and he just took some of the fat off the calf. And then who paid the price when it all fell apart too? They laid off a ton of staff. But John Tibbetts sounds like he's going to do okay. Let's listen to this.
It's not a video, although there is. Actually, is there a video? Brian Lilly? Did Brian Lilly talk about it?
Oh, maybe not.
I think
That's okay.
Often Brian Lilly does that though. He does often do like a piece to camera, but I don't think he did on this.
He's getting a $3 million severance package. Not too bad for Johnny, eh?
It's enough money, isn't it, to escape the consequences of his own life's work. So if he doesn't want to hang around in like an overpopulated place with healthcare waiting lines that you can't make your way through, massive youth unemployment, whatever else, all the problems associated with the mass immigration that he called for, made his money from, he can now just escape that. He's got enough money just to go move somewhere that it's not a problem. So
is it
maybe that's the Canadian dream. We talked about the Canadian dream earlier. Maybe that's the Canadian dream. Ride the wave as long as you can to make enough money so that you can escape the wave.
So this is the policies that benefit the few at the expense of the many, and the community paid the price, and John reaped the rewards. In 2024, his salary, $636,107. And that's almost a 30% increase from 2023. So he gave himself a big fatty there. He's just like, who decides on raises? That's right, I do. And that was a year. And then in 2023, he got a 20% raise, 21% raise. And in between 22 and 24, he got a 55% raise. Like, he knew how to make money, right? And he knew who would pay the price.
You can't deny it. He's done well for himself.
$3 million. They accepted his resignation, gave him an exit package of $3 million. This is the guy. How many young people suffered in that community because of him, his greed? How many people suffered?
And it's not just that community, because potentially it can spread out all over the place. This could end up being consequential for people in Vancouver and places like that. Like they're not stuck where they are.
Get yourself, if you live in that community, get yourself a fancy lawyer and launch a lawsuit against him. Because he damaged that community, knowingly damaged that community while he filled his pockets.
Well, they call it, don't they, in economics, they call it like externalization. He externalized. People like Mark Carney talk about this all the time when it comes to climate change. They say these companies made loads of money doing something to do with fossil fuels or whatever, but they didn't pay the costs associated with climate change or whatever. So does that mean maybe we could I'm serious, maybe we could start a class action and say he externalized the
Well, I think there's a suit there.
He took the benefit.
If I was living in that community, I would launch one, and I would say, like, the community paid the price for your greed and corruption. Like, his salary and his increases are obscene. I mean, I think any judge, they went after Elon Musk's pay package. Look at it. I mean, his increases are obscene. What he did there with it, he had 86% of his enrollment was foreign students. I mean, if that doesn't just show you corruption, what does? They basically took the Liberal policy and just used it to their benefit. Willingly, unwillingly, whatever.
They lobbied for it, didn't they, as well?
Here's Lisa Robinson with Rebel News there in Pickering. I think she's a city councillor. But listen to this here. Like they go and question a guy in his fancy new SUV there.
And this here is David Menzies.
Hey, hi.
Hi. And this here is David Menzies.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Do you stay in this hotel?
Which one?
Do you stay here?
Stay here.
No, I wanted to stay there. I was stay here.
Oh.
Now I just rent my home.
Oh, okay then.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you a refugee, sir, yourself?
Yes, of course.
Oh, where are you from?
I'm from Ethiopia.
Oh, okay then.
Yeah.
And did you originally stayed here? You said then, right?
First I was here.
Okay.
Then I just rent my home.
Okay, then you were able to find a job then, and you can pay the rent.
Yeah, I don't. Still have no job. But
Oh, okay. Then who's paying the rent, sir?
is it? Are you a journalist?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you recording everything?
Yes, sir.
Why don't you ask me first why?
Oh, well, I thought we're just having a conversation here. I don't mean you no harm, but I we're just trying to get answers about who's staying here and where they go afterwards. So you have a home, and I guess is the government paying the rent for your home?
Of course, yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, okay then. Where is this home located? Is it in Pickering?
Yes, it's in Pickering.
Okay. All right then. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, sir. Good luck. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye
See you
bye.
later.
All right. Here it comes.
So here's the idea. Cross the border, rip up all your proof of whatever you are, get yourself an accent, come back and get free rent, car. I don't know. It reminds me of like cell phone companies where they treat the new customer way better than they do the customer here. You know what I mean? Like the Canadian citizen can like live on the street homeless, including the homeless people. I mean the veterans. And yet, look at this, nice fancy car, no job, hotels paid for, rent paid for.
It's a RAV4 hybrid. So that is quite a...
Well,
it's
hey,
like
you want to make sure you got climate change
40
taken care
Gs
of,
or something,
right?
innit?
Yeah, you want to make sure climate change is looked after.
Yeah, obviously.
And then the people on unemployment, what are they getting? What's unemployment these days? How much is it a week?
Not enough to live on, but I mean, I guess he's found a way.
Does it come with a free car? Do you get a free car with unemployment insurance?
Yeah, maybe. As long as it's an EV or a hybrid.
He wasn't from Japan. It sounds like.
No, he said Turkey, but he said it the way that he's obviously been watching Mark Carney press conferences because he said Turkey. Which I mean, I'm being facetious. That is actually how Turks name how they pronounce the name of their country.
And then you have to ask yourself, why aren't Canadians outraged? Like absolutely outraged. Like somebody just put in here, max is $740 a week for EI. When you watch this, when you have somebody come into the country that you're using your tax dollars, and they have all this, and you get kicked in the face. And somebody's saying, I slept at the Good Shepherd and slept in the bushes. Yeah. I mean, this has to be shown to people. And then I thought I had the clip here from Edmonton.
There is a clip down here, a bit further down.
Is there?
Yeah. Oh no, you mean the link? Yeah, this would be the link, wouldn't it?
Try it. Try that clip there, because yeah, that's it. Play that clip here. This is what Edmonton is like right now. Try this. I used to live in the City of Champions.
Well, shocking new details tonight about a random attack downtown that left a local businessman and father of two dead.
Crime and disorder in the area are out of control. This is Edmonton, Alberta, Canada's fifth largest city, and a city that is falling apart amidst dealing with crime, drugs, and homelessness that is fueling disorder and decline. The city's downtown has been hollowed out, and some parts of the city look like war zones. And Edmonton's toxic drug crisis is now being cited by the Trump administration. My name is Ellie. I have a decade of experience in Canadian politics, and recently my team and I went to Edmonton to see what was going on. We analyzed the data, we spoke to residents, and we walked the streets ourselves. And what we saw and heard were some of the most shocking things I have seen in my career as a journalist.
It is a very sketchy place.
There's crime everywhere and there are people shooting up on street corners.
There were some young women walking down the street, a homeless guy who started harassing them. And as soon as they passed him, he looked them up and down and whipped out his...
So how bad has Edmonton become? And is this Canada's most depressing city? And who is responsible for everything that has happened here? In today's episode of Simply Politics.
So I just did a quick search there. Edmonton is diverse and has seen rapid growth in its immigration population. 32% of the population there is immigrants, and that's up from... it's the fastest growing immigrant shares among major cities in Canada. And it is a city that is definitely has some of the lowest rents in Canada.
Lots of sunshine as well, I think, still
It
compared
has
to other.
it has some of the highest office vacancy rates downtown, 20%.
I don't think though it's not just as simple as it's composed. The population is composed of a lot of immigrants, because I mean you can look all over Canada. I mean most cities in Canada, most big cities in Canada, similar thing is true, but they're not all beleaguered, are they? They're not all beset by trouble in the same way. So I think Edmonton's problems maybe predate a lot of the infinity immigration, but I don't know. I mean, the thing is, if your town's not doing well, and then you introduce
More people,
lots of immigration, especially not the kind of immigrants, perhaps one might theorize, not the kind of immigrants that are going to
contribute,
lift up the place.
Contribute.
Then you're gonna exacerbate the problem, aren't you?
Yep. Here's another clip here on money waste, fraud, abuse, and this is more on the $200 million gravel pit.
Refused to come clean about $200 million tax dollars that they handed a six-person company of liberal insiders to lease a so-called spaceport that is really nothing more than a gravel pit. $200 million tax dollars to a company that doesn't even own the land, that leases the land from the province of Nova Scotia for less than $20,000 a year. If taxpayers are not being ripped off, then why won't the Liberals release all of the documents surrounding this shady lease?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Great question, Mr. Speaker. Once again, establishing Canadian sovereign space launch capabilities is going to drive billions of dollars in investments. It's going to create good-paying jobs. It's going to increase Canada's sovereignty. It's going to reduce our reliance on the United States. It's going to support a commercial space launch and re-entry industry that could be worth up to $40 billion. European countries are lining up to work with us, Mr. Speaker. This is what we're investing in. I'm not sure what they're up to at all.
Like the gaslighting there, eh? Like he defends this. Like I think whoever cooked up this scam needs to write like kind of like a book how to do it on the internet or something, and people will buy it, because like you turn $13,200 into $20 million from one government to the other. So that talk about you lease it from one government, the provincial government, and then lease it back to the federal government for $20 million a year, and then you get a guy like McGuinty that'll shill for you and gaslight and talk about how European nations are lining up. What? European nations are lining up to use that gravel parking lot?
Like I said before, the Europeans have access to to French Guiana, which is very close to the equator. It's considered to be one of the best locations on the planet to launch rockets. In fact, I think it might be considered the actual best in the whole world of all the main rocket sites. So I don't know why the Europeans want to go.
Have you seen the size of that gravel pad or that cement pad?
Exactly. Lots of opportunities, lots of living space.
Thank you to Global Traveler for your consistent support for the show. We really appreciate it. And at the same time, we're helping out getting a car, free rent to an immigrant here or somebody, a refugee. And the person that served this nation, they're going to pull some of their funding. Housing Minister Gregor Robertson here, department transferred millions of a program to aid homeless veterans after it couldn't find any ex-military in need. The transfer was done confidentially since it was likely to generate negative stakeholder reactions. Wonder why? Why would it cause negative reactions? Don't forget, we just did the story where they spent, was it like $2 million almost to take cameras out to find homeless LGBTQ veterans so they could take pictures of each other and then put it in an exhibit so that the hotel could walk around and look at the photos?
That's the mistake that they made, these homeless vets.
I don't know, man. I don't know. And then this is another one from Holiday and Blacklocks. See tax dodges. Everywhere the cost of living has made tax evasion commonplace. The Liberal-appointed senator said yesterday. Senator Tony Varone, a former contractor, told Senate Banking Committee the black market is affecting everything we do. Living in Toronto there, it's becoming more and more prevalent. Every time I go to the hairdresser, they ask if I want to pay cash or credit. If I'm paying cash, the till stays open, so to speak. It's not being reported. And there's a lot of cash deals. And I mean, that industry has been like that forever. The black market is now worth about $68 billion a year and has increased 50% in the last 5 years. Yeah. You know what else is, where else tax dodging is? Brookfield. That one company alone, $6.5 billion allegedly. How about that one? Yeah.
That would pay for a few spaceports, wouldn't it?
And then, if we don't have enough money, Cabinet spent more than $700,000 opening up Canada's first embassy in Fiji. And don't forget, we just opened one in Greenland so that we could spit in the Americans' face, right? You know, a population of 50,000 on Greenland. And this is despite a pledge to cut waste. That's records disclosed yesterday. The mission was officially opened January 16th by visiting Liberal MP Randeep Sari. Expenses are expected to amount to approximately $774,000 and includes $524,000 for salaries and related expenses for Canadian diplomats, another $161,000 spent on rent, $33,000 for telecom and transport. Just waste, fraud, corruption, I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Can you imagine being like, you're on the list? You're on the list to be sent off to a consulate or whatever, an embassy. And the big day comes and it's like, okay, here's a new opportunity, Greenland. And you take that opportunity, you're so thrilled. And then like a few weeks later, Fiji comes up. You wouldn't be feeling very happy about that, would you? Spending your life in Greenland when it could have been Fiji. So spare a thought for our beloved bureaucrats.
Who was the biggest gaslighter in the Liberal cabinet? I don't know. I think they're all on the same level because they all just won't tell the truth. Listen to this here. And the reporters, like, they just need to find some courage and ask better questions. Here's McKinnon on shutting down committees.
You're putting closure on that bill on C11. Why are you putting closure on it?
Well, you're going to see this more often. The Conservatives will use this obstructive tool of just continuing to talk out bills. Sometimes they talk about the bill, sometimes they don't. And obviously we have a lot of bills and a lot of work to do. So we will obviously always have time for debate in the House, but when we see the obstruction rearing its ugly head again, we'll have to take measures.
Obstruction, though? Like, I didn't see any obstruction on the bill.
Yeah, there were signs of that. Yep.
They don't, I mean, that's the threat to the Conservatives. We're not going to do this all the time, but if you speak, we're going to do it.
I like that at the end. I was like, what obstruction? Did you see any obstruction? Yeah. That end of conversation. This bloke is like, he should be cast as an aristocrat, a member of the ancien regime in Paris in the early 1780s, shouldn't he? He's like, he's hilarious. The word hauteur was invented for this man. And also where he's saying, you know, the obstruction will no longer exist. Yeah, I think another word for that might be democracy. That's what upsets you, isn't it, Steve? Democracy. I don't think you like this system of government. I think you would much rather it was like in the good old days of King Louis XVI.
It reminds me of like a Disney Disney movie where the villains, you know, they just do like obscene stuff that's meant for little kids, so they really understand how villainous these people are, because that's what he did there. And the reporter's like, okay. He said, I didn't see anything. Well, there was. Oh.
Well, maybe maybe they're scared of him. That's not so out there, is it? I'm sure he could inflict massive punishment.
Oh, we got a few things to get through here. I don't know, like I'm not going to play the clips of all these, but this again, another one, $300 million for that prescription service no one used, $200 million for a gravel parking lot. I mean, we're just recapping it, and now they're working on a severance package for this guy, the CEO they fired for this Infoway. And he had, was it 400 grand? What was it yesterday? 300 or 400 grand in expenses he did over a couple of years too. It's just crazy.
Huge amount of money.
I want to cover off a couple of things. Property rights versus ideology, another one from Holly on Blacklock. So this is a big thing. We're going to leave a few of those stories because we're kind of long in the tooth here. Agriculture Minister Heath MacDonald yesterday explained property rights for plant breeders with an initiative opposed by organic farmers. Only those with long-standing ideological views would deny patent holders more protection. And this is for property rights versus ideology. And this is, like for Plant Breeders Act. Actually, I'm going to leave that one for tomorrow too. But we'll cover that more in tomorrow. Because again, I want to get through a couple of things here before we get at... But this one here, when we talked about immigration, I'm going to go back to this. Immigration here. So a person can now show up the border with a written story prepared by AI, and the officer is instructed not to ask questions. That will verify the credibility of their story. And Pierre Poilievre was pointing this out. In-person hearings no longer mandatory, and officers are discouraged from scrutinizing written claims. I mean, we showed you that clip a while ago with, they got this fast track for LGBTQ. You just pretend you're part of that community, and Bob's your uncle. Result fraud.
It could even be concerning your Uncle Bob. They probably wouldn't follow through.
It's just crazy. I know we wanted to get to a couple of things before we... This is the one I wanted to get to for sure. So the Alberta separatist movement, it's got the signatures now. So now what happens? So the Liberal machine gets to work. What did they do when the Freedom Convoy was doing? What was the first thing that came out of Rosie Barton's mouth? Russians. And here we go again.
After the sausage roll detritus, then.
Let's play this clip here. So it seems like the Russians now are influencing the separatist movement in Alberta.
Well, it seems foreign interference threatening our country's democratic integrity isn't isolated to general elections. A new report revealing international adversaries are meddling in the Alberta separatist debate, which, according to the findings, threatens Canada's sovereignty and national security. The alleged culprits, American and Russian actors who are said to be playing a nefarious and deceptive role in the province's dispute over seceding from Canada. Now, Marcus Kolga is one of the authors of the report entitled National Unity Under Threat, Foreign Interference, Cognitive Sovereignty, and the Alberta Referendum. And he joins us now to break this all down. So, Marcus, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
So talk to us about your findings here. I mean, they're very concerning. And why was this movement specifically targeted?
Well, this movement is targeted just as any other very potentially polarizing issues are targeted. Our foreign adversaries seek these out, especially Russia. They're very good at monitoring our information space, our political ecosystem, and identifying those issues which have the greatest potential for dividing Canadians. And it's not just Canadians they target most democracies in this way. And so this Alberta separatist issue, at least for the Russians, has been one that they've targeted in the past. We know that in
That's good enough from this nut bar. So when Mark Carney was questioned about all the Chinese interference, what did Mark Carney say? They said China seems to really be supporting you in the election. Do you know why that is? Mark Carney, I think his exact words were, I don't know. Let's move on.
Well, and recently there's Chinese interference reports, and not interested at all. Nor is the media, really.
But here's Mark Carney now. He got asked the question yesterday. The timing seems odd. He got asked the question about the separatist movement. Now they got their 300,000 signatures. And here comes the media. Dun, 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 dun. Out with the Russian card and the Americans again. And here's another one here. This one is, this one here. Listen to this one. This is the trucker one, the old one, right from the truckers.
Given Canada's support of Ukraine in this current crisis with Russia, I don't know if it's far-fetched to ask, but there is concern that Russian actors could be continuing to fuel things as this protest grows, but perhaps even instigating it from the outset.
That's good. So FinTrack did their investigation, and how much? We got Julie ready. FinTrack did their investigation, and how much Russian collusion was there?
Carbon price
Show us, Julie.
Zero.
That's right, Julie. Zero.
Not only that, but the word instigate. The hell are you talking about? And why is it they only ever unlock they only ever unlock this cabinet to bring Russia out when it concerns things that they don't like. Exactly. You know that Russia, the USSR before them, China, these countries, I'm sorry if this is a shock to any of you, these countries, and there's no value judgment attached to this. I know people like to freak out when I say things like this, but we are sort of de facto at war with these countries. They do this kind of, any opportunity that they have to weaken us and vice versa is taken. We are in a kind of cold war here. But the USSR and Russia, as we had a conversation with Catherine Swift about this, they sponsored all kinds of mad, deranged left-wing activist groups, environmental groups, race grievance groups like Black Lives Matter, First Nations groups and Native American groups in America, black activist groups. They sponsored all these groups, and in many cases, whisper it, they did in fact instigate it. They did in fact create it entirely. Alberta separatism, on the other hand, no, that goes back quite a number of decades, and there is no evidence whatsoever to suggest that the USSR or Russia or China instigated these things. No, but they might try and tip the scales if it creates disorder in a country that they consider to be their enemy. Well, no shit. You know what I mean? Are you really surprised by that? But they also do it for left-wing causes. They love to do it. Anything that they could, that's kind of the job of espionage. That's kind of what they do all day. They don't have any other jobs. They just try and create chaos in the countries that their boss tells them are their enemies. But it happens to be the case that the richest, most fertile ground in a country like Canada in recent years has been mad left-wing causes, which they've sponsored. But yeah, don't worry about that. Don't worry about learning about that. Forget that. Just think about the Alberta independence referendum and associate that with Russia, because that's good journalism. That's good thinking.
And there's CTV trotting it out as well, like their headline there, Russia amplifying Alberta separatism. Do you think they'll have the same courage when it comes to Quebec, when the Quebec does its provincial election? Because they're leading right now. The separatists are leading that provincial election in the polls. Do you think they're going to bring out the Russian card for Quebec? I don't think so. I think they're scared of Quebec. And again, Ian's right. The separatist movement goes way back to the first Pierre Elliott Trudeau, right? The first Trudeau. The separatist
national energy policy.
And here's
what about Black Lives Matter? Just think about Black Lives Matter, which was amplified by Russia's foreign intelligence agency. We know that, basically, for a fact. Did any of you know that? Is that something is that known on the street? Does CBC know that? I think that's the more important point. This is just a given. The Russian intelligence agencies are probably going to try to do things like this. Of course they are. Like that's literally like their job description. Of course they're going to do it. But what's important is which ones are brought to our attention through the media. Which of their operations? Seems to me that it's only ever when it's things like this, things that they look at as right wing that they don't want.
Yep. Somebody said that MGCA, or Make Jim's Hair Great Again. Hey, I work with what I got.
Not catchy, that, is it? That's not a catchy acronym. Make beavers great again. Yeah, I can do that. I can sign up for that.
Even the BBC jumped on it here with their foreign actors interfering in Alberta separatists. But if you go look at the community notes on it, the community note says, nope. Community note said, that's bullshit. But we got Harman Bangu on later, so we're going to talk about the Harman Bangu stuff here. We'll talk about DRIPA later. And we'll talk about this too. 74% of BC businesses plan to decrease investment in BC here. We'll talk about that with Harman Bangu as well. He's going to be on at noon with Ian and I. Quebec's equalization, Canada's equalization program is being distorted by Quebec's artificially low hydroelectricity prices. We've talked about that. The Fraser Institute analysis explains a 4% increase in Quebec's electricity rate would increase in equalization payments and other recipients. Yeah, so Quebec artificially has their hydroelectric rates really low so they can grift Alberta. Pretty smart, actually, eh? And if it was the other way around, you wouldn't get away with it.
It wouldn't be smart, man. No, we wouldn't like that. But this is funny, isn't it? This is obviously a loophole. It's like a hilarious loophole in the equalization system. But this is the context in which a lot of the maritime provinces don't develop their abundant energy because they just think, well, why would we do that? Then we would have to give money to Quebec, probably. And we'd have to give equalization payments.
Free money or do work to make the same amount of money. Take the free money.
Again, talk about incentive structures, man. That's probably not the wisest thing that has ever been done in Canada, is it?
We do want to get a couple more things done before we call it here. This is on Bill C-18, which you and I have done a ton of work on Bill C-18. This is Andrew Lawton asking Mark Miller some questions on the Meta platforms here. Listen to the response.
You mentioned supporting local journalism as being a key part of your role. It's been just under 3 years since Bill C-18 received royal assent, and local media outlets are still frozen out of being able to share their content on Facebook or Instagram, a direct response to government policy, a decision made by Meta, but a response to government policy. So how are local outlets benefiting when they now cannot compete and actually get eyeballs on their content on the biggest ways that people would love to be consuming news?
I won't get into here about the ongoing discussions with Meta because they are difficult, no question. I would highlight the early success with Google that provided us $100 million a year, up for renewal in a little bit, but that went directly into small journalism to make sure they were being supported. It isn't an ideal situation, but I would highlight MP Lawton that when it comes to C-11 and C-18, these were bills that were notably delayed and filibustered in the Senate by your party.
But more money, you're putting more money into the local journalism initiative, more money to bankroll media. Why not just stop blocking them from being able to access audiences that could monetize their content?
That may seem to be a simple solution. It will not fundamentally transform the industry by allowing people to share news on Facebook. If you talk to Facebook, they have varying approaches as to what that actually meant. It was a declining revenue model, they think, for them. But there's no question that it isn't ideal that people can't post news on Facebook.
I'm gonna let you go first.
Well, I mean, what is there to say about that, man? I almost don't want to because I don't want to like crash out, as the youth say. And he's the kind of guy that can make one crash out.
You know,
But he's saying that's not going to revolutionize the media. Like, letting media back on Facebook isn't going to revolutionize Canada's media landscape or whatever. Taking it off Facebook sure didn't it? That revolutionized the Canadian media landscape. Many, many publications, experts, all those lovely credentialed people that the Liberal Party likes to listen to, they'll tell you that. You don't have to listen to me there, Mr. Miller. So, I don't know, it revolutionized the system by removing Facebook for news. Is it not going to have a similar, or at least certainly a consequential effect to allow it back onto news? I don't know. Maybe Mike Miller is obviously like vastly more intelligent than you and me, so I'll just trust him. I mean, he's got a really trustworthy face as well, hasn't he? I mean, I especially love his sort of furtive, squirrel-like mannerisms. Definitely a man that I feel like I would trust in an emergency situation, especially.
Well, a couple of things there. He said that the Google money was for local journalism. Why did CBC take some fat off the calf? CBC said it wouldn't take money in the beginning, but then it said, well, about that, we'll take about 7 million. Because you know what? Sausage rolls are sausage rolls. And then
where you find them.
And then he said that he fails to mention that close to 100 outlets have failed since this ban went into place, including CTV when they put out a piece that said we laid off 4,800 journalists, all because of Bill C-18. That's said in their press release. You can go read it yourself. And then there's been many publications, including one local here, Kamloops this week, said, thanks to Bill C-18, this is our last day. Boom, done, closed. People lost their jobs. We asked Mark Carney about it, and Mark Carney said, you're not going to like the answer. We're going to give more money to the CBC. And we know that CBC does almost jack in small communities, almost nothing as far as local reporting goes. And then plus these guys don't give access, right? And they have all these schemes. It's about control of the media. That's what it is. Why do they want to control the media? No other like democratic country. I think Global Traveler is one of the guys that says like he's been to many countries. Like the control of media here in Canada stands out, and it's absolutely atrocious. And like I mean, I guess maybe Ian and I, because we've exhausted many of our access points here in Canada, we're going to reach out to the UN or the U.S. State Department and ask for help to free the media here in Canada.
I would also say as well, like another consequence. We've said this so many times. When we're not even beating a dead horse at this point, we're beating a fossil of a horse. The horse is gone. But he's saying that this hasn't revolutionized the media landscape. It's as a consequence of massively declining revenues, which came about after the Liberals contrived to get news banned off Facebook in Canada. It was a consequence of that so many media outlets had to go cap in hand to the government to be given taxpayers' money just to survive. So it was like a quasi-nationalization of Canada's entire media sector, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I mean, that is profoundly revolutionary, I think. There's almost like we're talking about Global Traveler there, saying that the Canadian media is like uniquely unfree in the West. Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the reasons, isn't it? It's unique what's happened to Canada, and it's absolutely, like, it quite literally is unprecedented. I know they love to use that stupid word to make themselves sound articulate, but it really is. It's completely bizarre. It's completely unheard of. And I would just say, if you doubt me, which you probably do, and you should, doubt everyone. But if you doubt me on what I'm saying about the consequences of that decision by that Bill C-18, which led to Facebook banning news in Canada, go to the Media Ecosystem Observatory, it's McGill University and I think Toronto University. We interviewed the guy. Well, you did, didn't you? And I interviewed a different one separately. Just read their reports. They're not long. They're not complicated. They're very easy to. They doesn't take very long. Just read what they say, and they include the charts, like collapse in Facebook views and revenue and all the rest of it. And they also explain something else, that companies that were affected by this had to go to YouTube. You know, you're in one, as Pirates of the Caribbean man said. That's exactly what we had to do, and it's all there, it's all legit, and it's vastly more serious than Mark Miller. So if you're actually interested in reality and the truth, go there.
Again, just in the interest of time, because we have Harman Bangu at noon here, and we want to take a little bit of break here, but Jeffrey Epstein's suicide note released by a federal judge. It's a short note. They investigated for months, found nothing. So 16-year-old child results. It's a treat to be able to choose one time to say goodbye. What you want me to do? Bust out crying? No fun, not worth it. Legit, not legit? Who knows? Who knows? We played this clip yesterday, though, to start our show yesterday was Larry Fink. The most important things going on right now in the world as this world transforms into technology first kind of world. And this is where Canada is pooping the bed. Nope. No. No, back one more. There we go. It is energy, right? And then it's chips and not potato, and not Nallies, not Old Dutch.
Not fish and chips.
And compute. And look at this. This is Intel. Intel's been like a rocket. Intel's that orange line there. You can't really see it. But can you go, yeah, orange line there. Intel, it's over $100 today. Administration, put up the next slide there. Intel came asking for some help. And this is the difference between what the Americans do and Canada does. Canada puts companies on their knees. Trump said, you want some money? Here, give us stock. And they took stock at $20. That stock now is up over, like I said, it's up over $100. I think it's 113 today. Intel today, right now, $110. There you go. Not bad. Instead, we invest in things like battery plants that fail. Because nobody really wants to buy an EV, like not the masses. But you know what they do want to buy? Chips. Energy. Let's invest in that. Let's build a pipeline. And Tesla's rolling out the cyber cabs. More and more of them rolling out there. But we do have a really big salute today because in the United States, it's National Prayer Day, and we do have a lot of Americans watching here. No. This one here, the big one here from the big man himself. No.
That's blasphemy. That is blasphemous.
Well, you're going to have to find it because it's important.
The fellow with the long hair and the beard and the robes.
That guy. That's the guy. It's National Prayer Day. That's the guy. That's the really big salute on National Prayer Day. Pray without ceasing. Give thanks in all circumstances for those. For this is God's will for you. There you go. One nation, one heart, one prayer, one God. On the really big show.
The words of St. Paul there?
And then some people say that, and then I did a little AI for you, just for some fun. You don't have this one either, I imagine, right? That's okay. We're going to move on. Today, though, Joan of Arc, Greta Thunberg of old there, and Joan of Arc and French forces broke the English siege on Orleans. Orleans? How do you pronounce that? Orleans?
Orleans.
Orleans. That's right, Orleans. Major turning point for the 100 Years' War in 1429. There's a good movie on Joan of Arc. And also,
there's been a few, haven't there? Yeah, it's one from a while, like an old film about.
And then also in 1945, Nazi Germany signed the unconditional surrender in France there. That ended effective the next day, ending World War II in Europe.
It was also in France, not very far away from Orléans.
And in recognition of National Prayer Day, we bring in the big guy himself, the other big guy, Ronnie, and he's going to tell you how he can prove that God exists. Listen up for those doubters, for the atheists out there.
I have long been unable to understand the atheist in this world of so much beauty, and I've had an unholy desire to invite some atheists to a dinner and then serve the most fabulous gourmet dinner that has ever been concocted, and after dinner ask them if they believed there was a cook.
The big guy himself, Ronnie.
It's funny because his first competitor, his first rival for the presidency was Jimmy Carter, obviously, in the 1980 election. Jimmy Carter was also like often quite hostile about atheists. So they were both trolling atheists. It's quite interesting that not that long ago, really, was it? That was America, but nowadays not quite the same, is it?
Well, I mean, the Republicans have embraced it again. I mean, when they first got the House again, because in Congress, it says "In God We Trust." They honored that, and there's a lot more from J.D. Vance, Rubio, and Trump, and all that. In Canada, we put it aside. We recognize every other event here in Canada, but
Well, they have a national prayer breakfast, don't they? Which is Elizabeth May is one of the senior organizers of that.
We're talking about the climate and religion.
It is called the prayer breakfast, isn't it? National prayer breakfast. Yeah, she's one of the main organizers.
Well, there you go.
Don't know. She's a big Christian, apparently.
I'm going to go have a tea because we're going to be back in 40 minutes. Ian's going to go grab a sausage roll. We'll be back in 40 minutes. My throat started out better, and it's kind of like waned off there a bit. But we'll be back in 40 minutes with Harman Bangu, MLA here in BC. We've got lots to talk about. Anyway, thanks for being here with us. Harman Bangu at noon. Ian and I back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. PST every morning. Please like, share, subscribe. Please subscribe. 70% of the people aren't subscribers, so all you got to do is hit that button and help us out immensely. Thank you very much. And we'll see you at noon. Cheers.